This episode contains spoilers for Tales from the Borderlands.
Hello and welcome back to the Push to Smart Water Cooler. This week we are tackling the penultimate episode of Tales from the Borderlands, at least for this season. Last episode we left off with our party in dire straits as Valerie basically beat us up, took Athena, and is the boss of bosses now. This episode starts off pretty much immediately after that, where Valerie wants to get Gortys's last piece, which is up in Hyperion.
And here, the game kind of takes a change as far as genre tropes. Mm-hmm. It really starts pulling lovingly from the heist genre.
Which it does so beautifully.
Mm-hmm. It's mostly, obviously, in the kind of narrative cues and the things we see, but the way we get to participate in it, especially the montage where they're talking about the heist, was just really funny. The
big idea that Reese has is that he needs to dress up like Vasquez. Mm-hmm. And for that, he has to go find his dead body and then scan it and then, get a disguise so he can be Risquez. Fiona and Sasha need to get Scooter's help to build a spaceship.
I love this whole sequence. I was kind of hinting at earlier, but one of my favorite things was, in every heist movie, they go through, the plan, and there's, a montage of them actually doing the plan. And it is so ridiculous, and you know that it's not going to work out this way, because these are the Borderlands characters. But it's things like when he's hacking the mainframe and the montage, literally all you have to do is, press O. Or something.
Yeah, you just kind of mash the button.
Just
I
literally
love
mashing
that.
buttons, which is hilarious because that is exactly how hacking is portrayed in Hollywood. It's just hitting the keys a bunch and going, "I'm in," and that's exactly what we did. Mm-hmm. And that was a highlight. That was really, really funny and a really clever kind of acknowledgement of that.
Another kind of clever acknowledgement is during the present time with the masked stranger. Mm-hmm. Reese decides that he's going to make a break for it, but he makes sure to tell Fiona that the best way not to get shot is to zigzag, which is hilarious. Not just because of how ridiculous he is when he zigzags, but because in all of these first-person shooters, that is, rule number one, zigzag, and people will have trouble firing at you. So I loved that little nod to, the roots of the first-person shooter.
I didn't even think of that. I just kept thinking Archer and concentric circles, Babu. But that is so funny, because that is exactly what you do. Or, jump up and down. It's just, really silly movements that wouldn't make any sense in real life, but just how the way the game is, programmed and structured, that was what's going to help you win. That is really clever. And he figured that out all on his own as an NPC.
Yeah.
Didn't work.
He put his own special spin on it.
Which we both did different options there. You decided to run with Reese.
Yeah. Which I loved because Fiona's just kind of doing a steady little jog and Reese is flailing behind her. And it's hilarious.
I chose not to run, which I thought was also really funny because both she and their masked assailant just kind of stop and stare at him and talk about how ridiculous he looks as he's running around in the foreground screaming. That was a very good way to start the episode.
Yeah.
One of the things that kind of struck out to me about this episode is it's another... We're kind of with all of our episodic game water coolers. We're kind of at the penultimate episode. And we are still no closer to figuring out who this masked guy is and what he wants. We kind of suspect who he is.
I read this interesting theory that, what if it's Athena? And, that would make it so much better than Felix.
Oh, I like that one better.
But I'm not sure how far into the future this is, so...
One thing I will say, before kind of get my negative out of the way, this didn't really do much to advance the main plot in a way that was necessarily compelling as a whole, I suppose.
It didn't really feel like it was setting up the final
right episode. Yeah, it kind of was this thing I really enjoyed it, and at the end it was wait, we only have one more episode. What are we even wrapping up at this point?
Yeah. And
we kind of have getting a little bit ahead, but we finally see the will you or won't you let Jack take control kind of come to a head, but it's not in a way that feels dramatically satisfying as part of a whole arc with the other episodes, because we didn't really have that good foundation laid before. As we kind of talked about, it never felt like there was a point where it's man, I really should have trusted Jack.
Yeah.
So I feel as an episode in an overarching story did not work well, but as an individual just kind of 2 hours of play. It was really, really funny and really fun.
One thing I will say about Handsome Jack, they didn't really, in this episode, they didn't really make me feel like he was ever a valid option, but they did try to humanize him a little bit, which I think that did a lot to kind of ease a bit of that.
That is exactly what I was thinking, especially getting ahead when you're at his desk and you see the photo of his daughter. It's like these little things that are clearly meant to manipulate you into feeling like, okay, maybe I can trust this guy, even though we don't really have that established from earlier episodes. And I was kind of Googling before this, trying to figure out what the story was on his angel. And apparently there's this whole big backstory on it in the game, in the Borderlands games. So I'm sure that that kind of added a little bit extra for people that have played the games, that maybe that wouldn't have humanized him as much. Or I wonder if that would have colored kind of their feelings on him. But I came away from this really wanting to play Borderlands.
Which is good. Unlike the Game of Thrones game, which literally keeps me from watching the new season of Game of Thrones.
Well, to be fair, the new season of Game of Thrones should keep you from watching the new season of Game of Thrones. It wasn't very good.
One thing that commenters in our previous episode pointed out was that Athena is actually a playable character in the pre-sequel, and the previous episode really sets up how she gets to that game. So this episode gave you a lot of closure with Athena. You go to Scooter's garage and you get to talk to her girlfriend. And you'd actually interacted with her girlfriend previously. So what did you do in this situation?
I was just truthful with her. I told her, she was training us. Somebody hired her to do that. She put up an awesome, this amazing fight. She didn't really have time to say anything, but, she was just doing this because it was a job.
So I said that it was a delivery job.
Oh.
Fiona pulls out the packet of bullets that Athena gave her from Felix. And so she was like, see, it was a delivery job.
Should we talk about then Reese and Handsome Jack and Vaughn going to get Vasquez's body?
Wait, Vaughn was with you?
Yeah.
Vaughn wasn't with me. What?
Wait, what? Did you not have the scene on the back of the truck then?
No, because Vaughn is with Cassius. He wasn't in this episode at all other than a conversation, over, a comm.
Oh, no. He was in this Cassius gave him to Valerie. So he's Valerie's hostage. And we had a conversation in the back of a truck, and he asked if he thought he should make a break for it, and I told him no. And then you had the option to, since your hands are tied, do instead of a bro fist, a bro knee. And then I got the alert that said, you and Vaughn are the broiest of bros. And then he still kind of stayed with the truck while I and Handsome Jack went and got Vasquez in his face.
Yeah, that didn't happen at all.
I wonder what choices we made.
I'm guessing it might be because I tried to stop Athena from killing Cassius, but Cassius and Vaughn run off.
Interesting.
When shit hits the fan.
Yeah. One
of the first moments that made me laugh my ass off was when they were talking about face pizza.
Yeah.
Reese is like, pepperoni, and it's just and the delivery is just so perfect, and this entire scene is just I loved it. When he's peeling off the face and Handsome Jack is like, yeah, just like a serial killer. And it was just such a beautiful...
The part that made me laugh is when Reese goes running and Jack's just like, I can fly. It was just
oh, yeah.
It didn't fit the scene at all, but it made me laugh.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of just really clever writing.
So once you collect all the pieces and once you get Scooter and Athena's girlfriend to make you a spaceship, then you have the big credits moment with the song, which is also hilarious because there's that walking, staring weird sequence, and then they're up in space and Reese vomits on the guy. It's just I always look forward to those sequences, and this one they put it off a lot longer than they usually do. So it was building up, and I was really happy. And then you get that scene with Scooter where he dies, and I was very sad.
Yeah.
But I wasn't going to kiss him because
I did by accident.
Oh no.
Because I chose, it's step 3. I was like, okay, so on to the next step. I'll just have her kind of commit and just go with it. And it was no, step 3 was make out. No.
I hugged, and it was very poignant.
For the record, they did not make out. It was just a little kiss. But he got his, like, Dr. Strangelove riding the rocket down sequence.
Yeah.
Yelling, catch your ride. So it was like, if you're gonna go.
Did you shoot out the satellite?
I didn't.
You didn't?
I didn't. 'Cause I didn't want to,
You
like...
heartless
We could have got caught. We were going into enemy territory.
So you can program what it says.
Yeah.
And one of them is catch a ride, obviously, which is what I chose, because it's like, of course. But another one is see you, Space Cowboy.
Oh!
Which I would have sworn you would have done.
No, I didn't do it. Oh, I wish I did.
You didn't honor Scooter's memory.
No.
I'm so offended.
I had to make sure we got through with the mission.
And then you finally land, and then Reese suits up as Vasquez and meets the guys outside.
Which this is part of, like, the genius of this game. We complain in Game of Thrones and some of the later Walking Dead episodes, like, your choices don't matter. Here, they're not going to change the course of the story, but they matter so much in creating the perfect joke.
Yeah.
And so, like, when you first have the chance to approach these guards, they're going to be suspicious of you no matter what. But depending on what you say to them, you can get a really, really funny sequence.
And then we have the big reveal that Yvette double-crossed us.
What? That's another thing. Like, is she going to end up being the big bad since this is the second to last episode?
I don't think so, because she was alluding to management. Mm-hmm. And she's like, I'm going to take you to management. And so I feel like that might be. But I don't know, maybe Valerie is, but maybe Handsome Jack is. That's one of the things that kind of threw me, is that I'm still not entirely sure what the big hurdle that we have to jump over is.
Which, again, going with our idea that these are just NPCs, they're not going to have a big hurdle. But it felt...
The hurdle is themselves.
Yeah. But it felt like in the last episode, like you're talking about that kind of meta-narrative and the idea of Athena training Fiona to be more than an NPC, to take control of her own story. And then it felt like she just failed spectacularly. And now we're back to the status quo of these people just no idea what they're doing. So that's another, like, again, that's going into it. Like, I don't feel like this advanced the main story. I have no idea what the main story is at this point. But I don't know. I'm kind of struggling to figure out to decide whether or not that's a bad thing, because I'm enjoying it so much just bumbling around with these people.
Exactly. I feel like it's one of those things that I'm not really going to know if it's a bad thing until that final episode.
Yeah.
And then from here, the heist kind of continues, and you all have your little missions. Sasha, Fiona, and Gordas have to steal the tour guide's ID badge, and then Risquez has to, like, disable the security in this weird, like, brick
I did not understand
game.
what was happening in that scene. It was like, it was like halfway through, and like the bricks are all building up. Like, oh shit, I'm supposed to be doing something, and then Handsome Jack. I don't know if he does it for everybody or just for people like me that don't understand what's happening.
Oh, he did it for me.
Okay, and you understood.
But then again, I didn't really know what was happening either. So,
but Handsome Jack kind of takes over. So, which again might be part of that kind of building too. You're going to have to trust Handsome Jack, like kind of creating that maybe he is on our side where he hasn't really necessarily helped us before. But yeah, that sequence as a playable sequence didn't quite work. But we should say this is also where like a sight gag is established too. Once Risquez is walking the halls, you see in the background people like do the thing where they do like the finger guns and they pretend like they're shot. And in the background, like Risquez does it once to somebody, and then you see it in other scenes, like with Fiona and Sasha in the plaza, in the background getting more and more elaborate, like people sneaking out behind plants to shoot people in the background with their finger guns. Which
was so amazing. Like it felt like on its own it would have been hilarious as this like totally random kind of corporate life thing. And then it builds to
the greatest payoff.
Which is so random, but it was like the perfect kind of like comedic pacing.
Yeah.
Like at that point, there hadn't been like a big laugh in a while, so it was like it was time. And so they just did this completely over the top sequence where like it almost felt like my button presses didn't really matter that much.
No. It was very much like a John Woo, like he's like slow-mo pulling both finger guns out from his coat. And it was so silly. And all the sound effects, of course, are just people making gun noises.
Yeah.
And I liked that also in the sequence you had like the people that were not involved just kind of walking around the cafeteria. Like right when he like slams in the table to flip it to dodge, like the guy with his coffee cup just kind of gets up and stands out of the way like this happens every day. And guy has a cell phone.
And the guy who's just randomly cleaning around all the dead bodies. And then you have Sasha Gordis and Fiona getting the ID badge, which of course goes horribly wrong because Gordis is amazing.
Yeah.
And she's like, would you like another cup of whatever humans drink? And then smashes everything everywhere. Oh, I just loved it.
Telltale and Gearbox, please merchandise this.
Yeah.
Get on a talking Gordis doll or robot or something. I will buy it. Please. She is so cute. Like, again, I keep coming back to, well, it's not advancing the story, but it is so funny. And it is like, there is so much love put into all these little details that make it so funny. And it's like before we were recording, like when I first finished it a few days ago, it was like, okay, did you do this choice? Okay, I'm going to send you a clip from it just so you could see what I got because it was really funny. And then you would send me a clip of what you did in that situation. It was really funny. And it's like, it's just like, this is a game. I won't say it's made for it, but I think it does especially well with like the advent of YouTube and Let's Players because you can share and see all the different possible scenarios. Because they're all really funny.
I was thinking about it because I was getting very emotional when I was playing the episode, just thinking about how this has to end.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have to say goodbye to these characters. And it reminded me of The Walking Dead and how, like, there was always this gap that I'd kind of put between myself and the characters because, you know, other than Clem and Lee, because they could die at any moment. And that's what made, like, the end of the first season so moving. But this, I don't really have that gap because it's like everything is just, nobody's really died until Scooter. And it's just kind of jokey and fun. So when the stakes get raised, I'm kind of caught off guard.
Yeah.
And I'm a lot more emotional than I would be as, like, to Walking Dead.
Which that happened to me at the beginning of the episode, and it just occurred to me, did not happen to you. Vaughn gets stabbed. Valerie stabs him in the side.
Valerie stabbed Sasha for me.
Really? Interesting. Yeah. That's a totally different read. And you still have Fiona having to make that choice and try to talk with her, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting because that would be, I feel like a very different, I don't know, I feel like I'd play that differently if it was Fiona's sister being stabbed.
Yeah, because I did it and then I pretty much gave in pretty quickly. And then Sasha was like, you should have tried to get something out of it. And I was like, she just stabbed you through the arm.
Oh.
So, I don't know.
Yeah, Vaughn got stabbed in the side. I still had Fiona kind of try to argue for something because it was like, it's Vaughn. But at the same time, that was the first time I felt like it was like, oh, this is a Telltale game. You know, people die in these games.
Quite often.
Yeah. So should we talk about the actual tour that Fiona has to give?
Which I love.
Me too.
Because another thing, like, it is on rails, but that's the thing is, like, a game like Game of Thrones, you want your choices to matter. You need your choices to matter to be invested because it's shitty. And for Tales from the Borderlands, it's like, it's on rails and there is a story, but, like, it's all about the characters and the moments. And so you do feel like you're piloting this ship in a way because you are choosing all the gags.
I think in Game of Thrones, when we say we want our choices to matter, it's like we want them to have definitive influence on the story as far as where it could branch. Like we want event A to affect event B. Whereas here, you know, A and B are static and that's okay. It's more of kind of like the little squiggly line in between and like making the best jokes.
Well, because, like, with Game of Thrones, I want my choice or my consequence to, like, resonate with me in some way. And that doesn't happen when I'm like, I'm taking my sword with Ramsay. No. But when it's something like, sup, ladies, and they talk about misogyny, then it's like, I did that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Or if I shoot a diamond pony.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. That just, it kept going, and it was so funny.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
What?
And it was like there was so much going on in that moment. Like I was like, she shoots it, which is already funny, and then Gordis is yelling and like hitting it. I'm ready for life in prison, and then like, and then it's bleeding, and Fiona's freaking out, and then she gets stacked. It's just like, it was perfectly, everything was perfectly timed. It was just, it was beautiful. But before we'd have to do that, we're taking these Dude Bro Jack fans through the tour, and you have to make it up as you go along, which as someone who has never played Borderlands, I chose to make all the most what looked like to me to be the most ridiculous options. Like I said, like, oh, this is Jack's father, and he rode his diamond pony steed into every battle.
And then when you go up to the chair and it's like, it's a metaphor. And then the guy comes and sits down on it. And then I was like, I got you. Boom. Yeah.
Did you let them enter the office?
Oh, hell yes.
Yeah.
And that's another thing, like, I have no doubt in my mind that even if you say you can't go in, they like rush in like buffoons.
Yeah.
But I don't know, it doesn't bother me.
Yeah. Because it's funny.
It's funny, and if you say, yes, do it, then you're kind of like a sly Fiona.
Yeah.
And if you say no, then you're just Fiona surrounded by dude bros.
Yeah.
I mean, it still contributes to her character. Mm-hmm.
Like, the guard's reaction is just like, oh, not cleaning this up again. Like, just total... He's seen this 1,000 times. It's just... And that says so much about this world.
The culture of Hyperion.
Yeah, it creates an entire story about this... Like, this little room.
Oh, and then you have the kind of confrontation between Risquez and Yvette.
Yeah.
In her office. Mm-hmm. What did you do?
And intimidated her and talked her down.
Yeah, me too.
I feel like talking down makes more sense in this universe, even though Vasquez is clearly not above brutalizing and murdering his way up the corporate ladder. But I mean, there is like a kind of game here.
They get down to prison. And they find the trapdoor that leads up into his office. And that's kind of when the game kind of rushes towards the end. And I know it's such a kind of silly distinction, but this episode feels kind of like a two-parter as opposed to, just an episode. And that it ended so abruptly.
Yeah.
And there wasn't much build-up, but it's obviously going to continue, like, immediately in the next episode. And that's whether you decided to rule the Hyperion with Jack in your head or not. Which did you choose?
I chose to rule it.
I knew you would.
Why? Is it my tree burning ways?
Yes. No. Just because I know that you knew that I wouldn't.
I
did. And she's like, she's just going to do it to get the different footage and to see what it's like. So what was that like?
I'm assuming it's the same. It was a little bit weird. Reese was like, yeah, let's do this. He's like really into it. And then like they plug the thing into his head and his eye turns gold, which one of our commenters, Catherine Henderson, pointed out she actually had trusted Jack before and noted that his eye went yellow whenever Jack was in control. So her guess was that the future segments where Reese's eye is permanently yellow is due to something with Jack. Which I'm thinking this is pointing to, yes, that is definitely the case.
Yeah.
And then Jack kind of gets on the loudspeaker, announces to everybody that he's back, and they got a new president he'd like to introduce. He's come all the way up from janitorial to president. And then it kind of cuts. But, so what was it like for you? Because I'm assuming you still got, I guess, for lack of a better word, possessed by Jack in some way. Mm-hmm.
He, forcibly, puts the thing in his head. And then it's just this very menacing, screens of Jack's face in the background being like, I'm going to make you kill Fiona with your own hands.
Ooh.
Kind of thing. Yeah. And then Fiona and Gortys get found. And this is the one that I'm very curious about. Did it seem to you like Sasha betrayed them?
I don't know. I didn't get that sense at first. Because she also reacts, which maybe she does for you, when Jack is coming up over the loudspeaker, she says something like, this can't be happening. Which seemed weird to me, because it seemed like she knew something that I didn't. Which maybe that... Did you get that too? Is that why you feel like she betrayed you?
There were just little pieces leading up. Like, for example, when she was taken hostages by Valerie and was stabbed. And after I, gave in immediately, she's like, you could have gotten something out of that. This kind of very cutthroat. And then when they're on the spaceship, she's like, I never really felt like I belonged on Pandora. And the way that she kind of, eased into the kind of silly corporate. So it gives me pause.
Yeah, but at the same time, remember when we meet her, she's posing as August's girlfriend. It's that's just, that's how I took it at first, is she's just really good at running this game.
I really hope so. I don't want her to be a bad guy.
Yeah, I'll be so pissed if she ends up being a bad guy.
Yeah.
It's she was just flirting with Reese to, you get to this Jack data that's in his head, and it's no. I like Sasha.
Yeah, she's like one of my favorite characters. She better not be. Yeah. So let's do choices. So, for me, because I had a heart and a soul, me and 48.1% of players honored Scooter with his catchphrase on his satellite.
Me and 14.9% were practical and pragmatic and decided to continue with the plan.
Boo. And then we and 43.7% of players let the tour group get vaporized.
It's gone up to 8.8%, 43.8%. Oh. It's like if you saw the chance and you gotta take it.
Exactly. They're all wearing handsome Jack masks.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
And I and 70.9% of players shot the innocent diamond pony.
Oh, so great.
Oh my god, we were ready for prison life.
As for Reese, I revealed that Handsome Jack was helping me.
Oh, what percentage was that?
26.4.
26. Oh. When I played, it was 62.4% claim that I was searching my databases.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they both get really offended. They're like, how come you didn't tell us? And, yeah.
They didn't get offended, but they were still, like, suspicious that you were hiding something. But for the most part, they dropped it. Again, shockingly, only 23.7% when I played at least had talked Yvette down.
And then I and 57.8% of players chose to reject Hyperion.
46% chose to rule it.
So yeah, like, I came in expecting the end of the episode would lead up to them getting caught by the masked man. We still have no idea when that happens or when it's going to happen in the game. And so now I'm just kind of like, okay, I'm just going to let you guys tell your story. I'm not going to try and figure it out. Just make it all worth it and make Sasha not a bad guy.
Yeah. And make Gortys toys. Oh my god, I love Gortys. She's like MVP.
And you weren't the only person who thought that, because last week our question was, who is your favorite character? And of course we got Gortys. Referee Nightingale said that they would choose Gortys if they were forced to choose just one, because, I mean, obviously, she's adorable. And Reverie fell in love the second she was introduced. Bleeder's favorite character is Athena, and I believe, based off her comments, that she's played the other games in the series.
359's favorite character was Valerie. Loved her design and her swagger. I have to agree. This kind of made me think of, while I was seeing Valerie kind of menace Fiona, made me think back to all the way when, like, Grand Theft Auto 5 came out. And there's a lot of think pieces. I think Leah Alexander was one of the ones really pushing it, of, like, why aren't there any women in Grand Theft Auto? Is it because they just aren't creative enough to write menacing women? And here we got Valerie.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is what, this kind of shows a whole area of untapped potential that games could explore.
Yeah, you don't really see, like, a character like Valerie who's physically imposing, but not in, like, a comedic way.
Yeah. She's just, she's big.
Yeah, she's just big, badass boss of Pandora. And so this week we want to know, as per usual, since the next episode is the last one, any finale predictions. Tell us what you know, who you think the person in the mask is, if we're going to meet up our timelines, how much time has passed. Let us know all of these things in the comments, and of course, do not forget to subscribe to keep up to date on all of our latest episodes and water cooler discussions.
You're shitting me.